child's pose, upwards dog, and downwards dog. These are all yoga poses. Yoga is very effective in helping the mind and body through meditation and various balanced movements. After doing extensive research and even participating in yoga myself, I can confirm that this is true. This should be relevant to all of us because through stress from school, work, and even family matters, it builds up in our bodies, and yoga is a great way to relieve that through the breathing and meditation and stretches. So I'll go through why you should exercise, what yoga is, and I'll go through why you should do it through the benefits of the body and the benefits of the mind. So I bet you're all wondering, why should I even exercise in the first place? I'm going to tell you right now, exercise is really good for you. It makes you healthy. Just 30 minutes a day is good for you. The Mayo Clinic states that even small amounts of physical activity or accumulated activity throughout the day provides health benefits for you. So if you exercise, you get healthier. And then to go further into that, Better Health states that physical activity or exercise improves your to reduce the risk of getting certain diseases like cancer, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. So if you exercise, it also lowers your risk of getting diseases. Next, I'm going to go into what yoga is, because many of you probably don't know what yoga is or the real definition of yoga. So WebMD says that yoga is a total mind and body workout that combines stretching and strengthening poses with breathing and meditation or relaxation. So yoga, you do stretches. I wish I could demonstrate for you, but you take deep breaths while doing various stretches. There's also strengthening poses like a warrior pose, right? Sounds like it'll make you strong into a warrior. And then there's the sunrise salutation where you're just stretching your arm and whole body and back. Then Live Science states that yoga, the stretches and contortions integral to the ancient Eastern practice of yoga, blends the physical and mental while meshing the mind and spirit and body together. So now we've added spiritual stuff to yoga, which if you believe in that stuff, that's great. Yoga is for you. But if you don't, it doesn't really matter because it's still combining your mind and thought process with your body stretching, strengthening. So now we're going to go into the benefits of the body for yoga. So the benefits of the body is that it increases flexibility and balance, and it reduces inflammation. So there was a study of about 26 male college athletes, and they did yoga for 10 weeks. And after the 10 weeks, they had increased flexibility and balance. So combining yoga with other athletics actually is really beneficial because it gives you that balance and mobility and flexibility that you wouldn't have had without it. Another thing it does is reduce inflammation. So the Mayo Clinic states that when we're overstressed, our body loses the ability to regulate our inflammatory response, and that causes also depression too, but I'll get into that later. So me and my mom actually have rheumatoid arthritis, which is inflammation of the joints, and it causes joint pain, fatigue, and stiffness. So she walks in the morning because exercise, it makes you healthier. She walks in the morning, gets up at 5 in the morning, walks for an hour. It does great for her mental and positivity, and she's has a good attitude throughout the day, but it really does nothing for the stiffness of her joints or her back or neck. And then I do yoga, so even just 5 minutes a day, I do it just in the morning, and it makes me focused, it makes me more positive, and it even helps reduce the pain in my neck and back that I would usually have if I didn't do yoga. So at work, it doesn't hurt me as much since I did do the activity. Now we're going to go into the benefits of the mind. So yoga actually reduces stress, anxiety, and lowers the risk of depression. So for anxiety, there was a study that followed 64 women who had PTSD, which is characterized by severe anxiety and fear caused by a traumatic event. The women did yoga for 10 weeks, and after that, most of the women had no anxiety symptoms, or had lower anxiety symptoms, or they didn't, and more than half of them didn't even meet the criteria for PTSD at all, which is very good. And then with lowering depression, like I said earlier, the Mayo Clinic states that when we're stressed, our inflammatory response goes down, and then we have a risk of depression. So yoga reduces the risk, or reduces stress, reducing the risk of depression. So that's why you should do yoga, because of its mental benefits of helping reduce the stress and anxiety and lower the risk of depression. So all in all, yoga is very beneficial for reducing the risks of getting certain diseases and having anxiety and lowering the risk of depression, and it's good for your mind and body. So next time you're all home and have nothing to do, instead of going on social media, try doing some yoga.
Jackie, by any chance, are you here? Will you give us names of the poses as your attention device? That was kind of a good idea. I think maybe you could make it a little bit more interesting and compelling. Maybe even describing some of those things as a way of pulling us in. The topic's okay. Your goal's clearly stated. I do think that you want to do a little bit more trying to convince us that this is a better way of resolving some of our issues than maybe other kinds of exercises. You don't want to get, you're making a particular claim and about yoga, so I think that you ought to develop some information that is particular to yoga. You've got generic information that you start with about exercise. That's really not something on which I think there's a lot of controversy. I thought you got through that point pretty quickly, though, as a generalization about why we need to be doing some form of physical activity. That's okay. When you transition to the points, though, where you start the argument in favor of yoga, I noticed that all of your transitions feel a little mechanical and awkward. They're not particularly smooth. I've got next, so now we're going to, it's just, there needs to be something that kind of has an internal summary of the point that you're making and then moves us to the next point. It makes it sound kind of stop and start jerky as you're moving through the presentation. The organizational structure itself is probably fine. The points that you talk about, I think, are distinct. And you've got good information in the presentation in a number of places. Studies that are being cited to show particular benefits. I do think you could make it a little bit more emotionally involving by talking about how people might suffer from depression or have difficulty doing certain kinds of exercises, and yoga might be helpful for them. You mentioned, for instance, the impact that it can have on both inflammation and also our immune systems. I'm thinking, okay, so how do we measure any of these sorts of things? How can we see a difference? I think that would be helpful. You had that one study that talked about the women who had PTSD, and I'm thinking, okay, well, what happened to these women? What is it that gave them the PTSD? What experiences did they have that was traumatic? And how did doing yoga influence? You've got this general, they all did it and then it disappeared. I'm going, well, that sounds like magic, it's yoga magic. How do we make this work? I think you need to kind of give us a little bit more detail on some of these things, because you're kind of getting to the conclusion, and you've got the basic information there, but you're not selling it very well. You want us to believe that this is going to have an impact. You want us to have an emotional investment in this and connect with it. And I think that you need to kind of give us a little bit more detail on some of those points. The presentation is satisfactory. I do think you start off a little bit hesitant looking at the audience. You got better as you went along, so that was fine. There is some nervous. You have this tendency to just kind of grasp your hand while you're speaking. Once in a while, there are a few indicative gestures, but you kind of always come back to this thing where you're holding on to your own hand, and it doesn't look particularly natural. And somebody's doing yoga. I don't think that you have to do all the poses, but you ought to be a little bit more relaxed with your body while you're talking to us. All right, thank you.